All right, folks, we're going to be starting in just a moment, and I'm happy to be here with you, and I thank you for joining me. I hope this is going to be a great show for you and a great show for me, and I'm going to enjoy speaking with each and every one of you. So, without much more ado, let's get right on into it. Hello, I am Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I am here with you on No Soundbites Allowed, and I'm happy to be here with you because we have survived COVID-19. We have survived the coronavirus. We've always been able to do it. We were always going to do it, and we are doing it right now. So, with that said, we want to talk about the consequences. What has COVID-19 done to us all? What are the consequences of this crisis? How are we going to deal with this? What are we going to do in October and November when we're going forward in time? What are we going to do? Are we prepared? What is going to be the impact? Let's take the fear out of this and let's actually think about what we're doing. Let's make plans. Let's really move forward. That's my goal. That's my thought. That's what I want to talk about, amongst many other things. I have a lot of information that I want to talk about today. And it's going to be from the local to the state to the federal. We're going to cover a whole lot of ground. And of course, you are always welcome to join us. You can reach us at the 607-242-1582. You can call in. You can text on that line. You can reach us on Twitter at MVConsult. Or you can also reach us at the Voss Political Commentary, which is on Facebook. And hopefully today we have Facebook actually promoting the show, actually putting it out there because Facebook has been blocking us for some time. That being said, let's go forward. Where do I want to start? How do we start this conversation? Well, let me start with something that I thought was very interesting because right now we're on June 9th. In Broome County in New York State, there are going to be elections. June 9th is my local school board elections. And by the way, John Solak, Emily Jablon, they are running for the school board in the Broome County region. I hope they're going to win. I hope people come out and vote. It is very important, and I hope that they're going to elect these two individuals who are passionate. But separate of those individuals, let me be very clear. How are we going to vote? And this is important because we have the primaries that are coming up for New York State on June 23rd as well. How are people going to vote? Are they going to go out in person and vote? Are they going to be voting by electronically online? Are they going to be voting by mail? How are people going to vote? And this is important because our system of government has not stopped. As much as Governor Cuomo, Governor Whitmer, Governor Newsom, so many of these governors have taken over emergency powers, unlimited, unquestionable power. The question still remains, or the fact still remains, that we are the United States and the people are the true power. That's the 10th Amendment. And because of that, we have to ask the question, what are we going to do about our elected officials? We have the control. They serve us. That doesn't get said too often. It should be. They serve us. So how are we going to elect them? What are we going to do? In New York State, we have two things that are going on, two different voices that are being heard about this. And I want to address both of them, and I want to hear what your input is as well. Okay? So let me start off with something that I thought was kind of important. And where is it? So this is, didn't mean to show. Yeah, this is on Facebook. I'm not blowing anyone up. It's publicly out there. And the thing I want you to focus on is if you can securely file taxes online, then you should be able to vote securely online. What's the problem? And that's something that's been offered up by various politicians all over the place saying, hey, sure, we should be able to go online because you should not get out of your home. You should not be able to leave your home at all. I disagree with that. And there's an inherent problem here. But you tell me if you agree with this. So people say we should be able to vote online. Well, the big problem with that, and they say, oh, well, it's secure. Well, let's start off with the fact that it isn't secure. As reported by Forbes magazine, and yes, this was back in 2016, but the problem hasn't gotten better. It's still just as bad. But in 2016, February 28th, 2016, the IRS reported that 700,000 U.S. taxpayers had been hacked and 47 million transcripts were ordered out. Now, that's a pretty big number there. That's a pretty important thing. See, online doesn't mean secure. It never did. It never will. They're not the same thing. So when you hear a politician say, well, this is secure and you can stay home, never leave your house, you're still in prison, but you can vote. And by the way, you should vote for me. That's not what we should be hearing. And that's not correct because it isn't safe. You know what? You think, Mike, well, that was 6 years ago. I'm sure the IRS improved. I don't. Government is very slow at doing anything, and they're always behind the times. They're always behind business in getting things fixed and done. But let's just say that we're going to jump forward in time. And let's jump to, and this is a Google search. You can do it yourself. It's real easy. Look up kids hacking online voting. And what you will find is the 2018 articles about the kids at a hacking conference in Florida and an 11-year-old who hacked into the voting website machines, replica voting website machines, in 10 minutes. In 10 minutes. That was 2 years ago. So you say, oh, Mike, well, we've got it secure and the IRS is secure. An 11-year-old 2 years ago broke through all of the protocols for online voting in Florida. You want to tell me that it's safe? You want to tell me that you think that that's a good idea? You want to say, well, we can do this. This is There's your problem. Voting online is not voting in person. There is fraud that can happen very easily. How many people are anonymous on Twitter, on Facebook, on social media? How many of these people have aliases? How are you supposed to verify these people? How are you supposed to know? I want to address this. And I'm trying to be fair about this, but let's be realistic. It's a nice little meme. And as a meme, it sounds great. Ooh, we can secure it. No, because you're lying. It's not true. Not when an 11-year-old can hack online. So let's throw that out for the moment because that shouldn't be one of our top realities. That shouldn't be one of our immediate choices. And more importantly, even if you could do it tomorrow, which wouldn't be secure, that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to implement it tomorrow for June 9th when we have our local school. And this is happening across America. I may be using my local region, but this is something that's happening across America in counties and towns and states everywhere. So the answer is, well, we're going to go, excuse me. The answer I heard is, well, we're going to go and you can vote by absentee ballot. We're going to do mail-in. Let's mail in our ballots. Well, you could do that, except there's a couple of problems with that. A couple of big problems with that, as a matter of fact. And I want to bring up one of them in just a second. But I want you to think about this. It says, according to New York State, and in particular Broome County, okay, I'm just showing you, and all the links for everything I'm talking about will be in the description of the video when it's done. But you can go and see this yourself. COVID-19 pandemic, social distancing concerns, temporary illness option. That's what you're supposed to select, the temporary illness option. So before I go any further on this idea and this concept, let me stop and mention something. They're worried about social distancing. You can't vote. Your right, your constitutional, God-given right. You can't vote because you might be near other people, which is silly, and it's stupid, and it's a terrible argument. Because, quite honestly, did you get food over the last 2 months? Did you go to a store to get that food over the last 2 months? Did you go to Walmart? Did you go to Lowe's? Did you go to Home Depot to fix up your house? Did you go anywhere? Most people have gone outside of their homes at least once. So if you've been outside your home, you have been in danger of social distancing. Matter of fact, the fact that we closed all the businesses, all the different kinds of businesses, and focused all of the public into places like Walmart and Price Chopper and whatever your local regional supermarket may be, and we focused everyone in those little places, guess what? That means you had a higher chance and a higher concentration of COVID-19 coronavirus than if you didn't. If you were able to go to different places instead of all in one place, having everyone funnel into that area, touching those same items, if you didn't focus people like that, you would have less risk. So to say that social distancing is a great idea, well, that's not quite right. So that's really something interesting to me. It doesn't make sense that you're telling me, well, I'm going to social distance, and because I'm social distancing, we're going to be safer. And yet you're also telling us, but go to Walmart, go to a supermarket, touch the same things 1,000 other people have touched, and be in a place where you're going to have a couple hundred people breathing in the same recycled air over and over and over again, because that's completely safe. And I'm pretty sure people have seen by now the memes and the news reports of the surfer who was arrested for being outside during COVID-19 on a beach by himself, and he was in the ocean. The police waited for him to come onto the beach so he could be arrested because he broke the COVID-19 quarantine. This is 2 weeks ago, as I recall, maybe 3. And yet you can go to Walmart. I mean, come on, people, let's think about this. And I understand politicians are saying that this is, whatever. They have a lot of thoughts on this, but I want to address something. And then I saw something that was very interesting about this. And it came from, again, on Facebook. It's totally public, so I'm not outing anyone. Michael Charleston said, attention for the Broome County residents. Broome County is telling you to fill out temporary illness, which I just showed you. And it says that's your reason for voting. Remember, when you sign the mail-in ballot, you are signing a legal document. And that means you are, unless you have COVID-19, which the overwhelming number of people do not, the absolute, enormously overwhelming number of people do not have COVID-19, that means you have just lied. You have just perjured yourself. You have just become Michael Flynn. And according to the law, you are liable for perjury, which means you can be jailed, you can be fined. Yes, you can be imprisoned for perjury. And your ballot, your vote, is invalid. So if you wanted to vote for John Solak or Emily Jablon, or if it's the primaries and you wanted to vote for Claudia Tenney as an example, or amazingly, if the Democratic Party allows Democrats, the rank and file Democrats, to actually have their vote out and not suppress them and actually get a choice, you may want to vote for Joe Biden, the sexual predator. Okay, so you go out and you sign this mail-in ballot under the designation of COVID-19 temporary illness, and you don't have it, they don't have to value your vote, and you have committed perjury, which means you can be imprisoned and fined. Thank you, Michael. Michael Charleston made a great post there, and I thought that was really, really impressive. And it's very, very clear. I mean, let's read this. You have to sign the form under penalty of perjury, full stop. He's right. He's absolutely right. And I hadn't thought about that immediately. That was one of the questions I didn't think about. So when you hear people say, oh, well, we should do mail-in ballots, besides the fact that I believe it was Reuters or Associated Press that just found out 2 weeks ago, 28,000 mail-in ballots disappeared. And that we have all of these reports of people, mail-in ballots, being done inaccurately. Besides the fact that in New York State, illegal aliens are able to vote in our elections because, the single-party legislature decided that all they have to do is check a box whether they're getting unemployment, which they shouldn't get, or they're getting a driver's license, which they shouldn't get, that they're able to then go out and violate our laws. This is incredible to me. And now they want us to perjure ourselves. Now you're saying, well, Mike, it's okay because Governor Cuomo said so. And I'm so happy someone would bring that up. I'm so happy someone would say that. Governor Cuomo said so. Governor Cuomo. You know what Governor Cuomo is? He is emergency powers. He's Palpatine. That's right. Governor Cuomo is basically Palpatine. And we see the same thing out of Governor Whitmer. We see the same thing out of Governor Newsom. We see a lot of people who are falling under this same category. These are people with unlimited power, emergency power that has no end in sight. And they're able to decide whatever they want. Governor Cuomo didn't pass a law saying that selecting COVID and perjuring yourself is okay. Governor Cuomo, for as much power as he wants to believe he has, can't make that designation. It's not his choice. He doesn't get to change. Well, actually, under the emergency powers that have been endowed to him by the state legislature of New York, which is controlled by Democrats, he can do almost anything he wants. He's already changed 252 different laws without telling anyone. In fact, it's so bad that Senator Griffo, Assemblywoman Buttonshaw, as well as Senator Gallivan and Assemblyman Angelino Santa Barbara all came together and said, hey, this is crazy. This is insane. Governor Cuomo has too much power. He has way too much power. He has an unending emergency power. He's just extended it into 2021. There is no end in sight for when his power will end. That's crazy. Remember how you heard all the people saying that that President Trump was going to go and he's going to just declare martial law and he's going to be president forever? You heard people back in 2015 saying Obama would go for a third term and just get rid of the law and just rule forever. How is that different than what Governor Cuomo is doing right now? He has an unlimited emergency power of total control over New York State, allowing him to change over 250 laws, as many laws as he wants, at his whim. That isn't what our government is about. And I thank Senator Griffo and Assemblywoman Buttonshaw, who happens to be a Democrat, and Patrick Gallivan and Angelo Santa Barbara. I thank these members of the Assembly and the Senate for standing up and saying, you can't have unlimited power. You are not Emperor Palpatine. This is not Star Wars. No, you don't get to do that. It's wrong. And I thank Talk of the Town Utica, friends of mine, have been on their show, WUTQ, give them a shout out, for getting this news out to the public. And I know most people have not wanted to talk about politics. People have been told that you shouldn't listen to anything. You should just sit at home and you should just wallow in your fear as you are basically imprisoned in your home. You know, kind of like Operation COVID Crush by County Executive Jason Garnar, where you're only allowed to come out of your home every other day. His attempt to copy Governor Cuomo in an unofficial power grab by having an unofficial official document. I mean, again, we have too many problems. COVID-19 has given us a lot of issues where we have politicians who are making it up as they go. And I'm not just talking about how to deal with COVID or how to reopen New York. I mean, they're making up their power. They're like, I can decide anything. We have a county executive who's saying, you can't leave your home except for every other day because he said so. And it's completely unofficial, except he called a news conference to make the announcement with all the full power of his office, his elected office. That sounds pretty official to me. And that's a power grab. Thankfully, no one in the universe listened to him. But by the way, when did he rescind that? When did he give up that power? When did he make that not something that's supposed to be happening? We have given our elected officials far too much power in this COVID-19 process. We don't need to just limit, as Senator Griffo and Assemblywoman Buttonshaw have done, to put out something and say, we need to change this. You need a limit. You can't just assume emergency powers forever. You need a limit. We need to have a limit on the time, 30 days maximum. And then you have to reapply to the state government and to the people of New York to approve continuing to have that kind of power. And I think that's one of the most important things we're hearing right now. That is the first step towards what I think is absolutely important, term limits. We need term limits. God help us. We need to take back control of this country. And that's part of the process to do it. So yeah, I want you to go out and vote on June 9th. I would prefer to see you do it in person. And I want you to be aware that someone may decide that your vote doesn't count because the governor, through his own power, has decided to say, you don't count, you just perjured yourself. Just like Michael Flynn, and you are liable to the full force of the law. That's something terrifying and something important to keep in mind. It's something that's very important to keep in mind. I don't know, it drives me nuts. And, maybe you think it's a good idea. Obviously, there is a politician out there who also thinks it's a good idea that you can go online, possibly through fraud, and vote. Okay, that is that person's idea. I think it's absolutely flawed. I think it's absolutely a horrendous idea when you know for a fact that 11-year-olds can break into the system and do anything and manipulate it any way they want. Imagine what adults with a political agenda would do. Imagine what members of Plot, Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, imagine what the progressive far left would do. Since I think more than a few of them can hack into things too, and they do. So that's maybe one of the things I'm thinking about here. I don't know. Maybe I'm raging. Oh, by the way, I apologize. I wasn't looking at some of the comments here. I received a message John Rastusha mentioned. That's so true. I see that Christina Pagburn-Smith says, so do we or do we not fill out the form we got in the mail? And Christine, perfect answer, perfect question. Let me give you my answer. Yes, you fill out the form. Don't fill it out saying that you are temporary COVID-19. If you don't have COVID-19, why perjure? Why lie? What you should put down is that you're unable to do so. What are the reasons that we can do? And I want you to vote. I want everyone to vote. Please don't misunderstand. In person, because we can do it. If you can go to Walmart, you can go and vote. And we do go to Walmart, so you can go and vote. But if you must, if you're going to fill out, and we have to, by mail for the at least school board, what do we fill it out as? Well, you have the unable to appear. That's the closest thing. You're not absent for your county. That would be somewhat of a lie. But you're unable to appear. And again, it's due to temporary or permanent illness or disability, or because you're the primary caregiver of someone who is ill or physically disabled. That's the closest answer. And again, it means that there's a problem here. Theoretically, this entire election can be thrown out because people are going to be perjuring themselves almost any way they answer this. But I would say that once you qualify, then you would be looking for civilian absentee. It has many reasons why you wouldn't be able to vote, one of them being pandemic concerns. But it's the failure of government to think this through. Ultimately, the problem isn't this. The problem is we have so screwed up our system that no one has an accurate answer. There is no right answer. This election theoretically can be thrown out. And I think it's terrible because I think we have some great people who should be elected in there, as I've mentioned. But this is denying the public. This is hurting them. I'm not saying that I have the perfect answer. I'm not going to pretend to say that I have the ultimate answer. I can tell you that here are the flaws, and I can tell you that we need to address this. And the way to address it is not, Governor Cuomo said so. That isn't the answer. Governor Newsom, Governor Whitmer said so. That's not the answer. That's the problem. When we have one person making a unilateral decision without any input from anyone else, well, what we get is nursing home deaths. Yes, Governor Cuomo, you made the unilateral decision to be able to put COVID patients into nursing homes, and those nursing homes now are having greater numbers of deaths. He did that because he made a unilateral decision. And that unilateral decision was wrong, and it cost people's lives. And as much as I hear about the moralizing of about don't you care about someone's life, I hear this every day from my local talk radio news station, where I hear the host saying, well, if you say anything that isn't lockstep in line with what the government is saying, well, then you're just an immoral creature. Well, what about the immorality of Governor Cuomo killing people because of his decision that he didn't bother to ask the rest of the legislature or anyone else in New York about that? He just made up his mind. Let's hold him accountable for that too. Because remember, folks, this isn't some nice, perfect man, okay? Governor Cuomo was the same guy who said, and I'm quoting from an article right now from a Newsday on Cuomo, coronavirus fighting not to be over anytime soon. This was on April 23rd, and Cuomo happened to the sensitive, caring, ever so involved Governor Cuomo said, economic hardship, yes, very bad, not death. Emotional stress from being locked in a house, very bad, not death. Domestic violence on the increase, very bad, not death. Really? Really, Governor Cuomo? Is that what you really have to say about that? This is how caring he is. So the number of suicides, which we know for a fact have gone up. The number of people who are experiencing domestic violence is up. We know that for a fact. We know that people are having greater economic hardship. We're listening to all the businesses close. That's locally here. I've seen it with Maine's, the Ruby Red restaurant. We're seeing it in many businesses. We're seeing across the nation an estimated, depending on who you're talking to, 10, 12, 15% of small businesses are going to close forever. Yeah, we're talking economic hardship long term. And he says, that's bad, but, it's not death. Well, actually, these things lead to death, and it is very important. And you know what? Having someone who is not the unilateral emperor of New York or the emperor of Connecticut or Michigan and many other states we can mention right now, when you take away these people's unlimited power, you get better decisions, and you don't wind up with nursing home deaths, which is on Cuomo. Absolutely on Cuomo. The man who said that he thinks America was never great. That was Andrew Cuomo. America was never great. That was Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo also doesn't think it's so bad. Domestic violence, don't worry, you'll deal with it. Suicide, don't worry, we'll get over it. This is what he's essentially saying. And this is unacceptable. And that same man is making all the decisions for everyone. We need term limits. We need well-written laws that say, hey, in the time of a pandemic, a crisis, an absolute crisis, we need to know, how do we keep the nation going forward? We have just gone through 2 months plus of the most clear situation telling us what we need to fix in our government, where our weaknesses are, Where are the loopholes? How do we fix this? We know that we have a problem with voting. Okay? If it's too dangerous for people to go out and vote, which would mean it's too dangerous for them to go to Walmart, how do we allow people to vote? How do we get a secure system where ballots aren't going to disappear by the tens of thousands? How are we going to make sure that their votes are not going to be hacked, or that we're going to have bots voting in these elections for them? How are we going to do that? How do we instill that and create that system? That's what we need to figure out. Let's figure out a way to make sure that one man doesn't get to make a decision emotionally because he thinks it's good for his image, his public image, and winds up killing thousands, I think it was 5,000 people in the nursing homes. No, and to discount domestic violence, that ain't right. That's just not right. And there's several articles about this. This wasn't, just me saying this. People caught him saying this. We understand. And he may have been able to brush off the idea that, America's not great, but Cuomo didn't care about domestic violence. He's not worried about drug abuse. He's not worried about suicides. He's worried about his power, his emergency powers that are going into 2021. He's worried about his political image and his political potential. And sadly, there's a lot of people in politics right now that are doing that. That's what the HEROES Act is about. Anthony Brindisi and Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer. They're so concerned about the HEROES Act. Oh, yeah, it's going to be great. $3 trillion. Let's think about that. $3 trillion. You know how much money that is? You're talking about more money than the United States puts in first place. It's 100% debt. 100% debt. Do you think that might affect the economy? Maybe cause inflation? Maybe devalue the dollar? Is it going to be the Weimar Republic? No, but it kind of gets you close to it. It gets you a lot closer to a banana republic when you're suddenly doubling the debt in a year. I also have another comment from John Rasusha, who says, also, what do you think of the meme? Oh, there was a meme posted to John's. I know which meme. Slight side thought. Yeah, the image is actually this one. Spot the difference. I thought it was pretty funny. I thought that was pretty funny. But I want to focus on, what are the issues that we can do something about? What are the issues that are going on around us? And if we're not addressing that, we have to look forward. Our elected officials have to look forward. We as individuals, as citizens, we have to look forward and say, how are we going to fix this? We know that right now there's 36 million people who are unemployed. And I believe it's going to get to as high as 42 million people unemployed before we reach the peak. We're looking at potentially 10 to 15% of small businesses to close. And I believe in certain regions like my own, it could be as high as 18%. What are we going to do about that? We have to think of a long-term plan on how to fix this, because this is a problem. And the short term, just throw money at it, isn't going to work. Especially not when they're throwing money at it to be able to take care of their political agenda, which happens to be Planned Parenthood, and they happen to be throwing it to illegal aliens. Yes, look up the bill. Illegal aliens. They're giving your money to illegal aliens, not you. Every dollar they give to an illegal alien is money that's coming out of your pocket and is never returning back. Is that the priority right now? Is that what we should be focused on? People who willfully broke our laws and are actively evading prosecution of the law. Is that the person that we should be focused on right now? Are they the first person that we should take care of? Or should it be the people who are not able to work, who are losing their jobs, losing their businesses? That's a very big big question, and I have a very clear answer on that, but you may have a different one. But it's a question that we should actually be addressing, and we need to talk about it. But the media is so busy telling you, be afraid, COVID, die, that people are avoiding that people are not having an opportunity to talk about it. And I think we really absolutely must talk about it. I work a 9-to-5 job like everyone else. Today's one of my days off, besides all the other things that I do. And I was at my job, I was talking to a gentleman, small business owner in this region, a year ago, moved his business into the region. And he was telling me about how this is so devastating to him because he doesn't know if he can keep his business alive because his employees aren't coming back to work. And that's because they're getting paid more money to be on unemployment than actually go and work. You know, did anyone think this through? If you're paying people more money to be unemployed than to go to work, why is someone going to work? Besides the fact that they want to get out of the prison of their home that certain county executives have told them they should be in. So you want to get out of solitary confinement, you have to go work. And unlike Governor Cuomo, who says, well, if you want to get out your house, become an emergency services worker. Well, I'm sorry. Tomorrow, I'm not going to be able to run an ambulance. Tomorrow, I'm not going to be a doctor. I respect them. I think they do a fantastic job. And you know what? They went through years of work to become qualified essential workers. And by the way, everyone's an essential worker. If you're not an essential worker, you're not employed. If you have a business that doesn't have essential employees, it's closed. Everyone is an essential worker. This is a wonderful way of trying to categorize people and make you feel bad if you're not one of those key people. But every business and every worker is a key and essential worker. But if we're talking about those people, the first responders, police, doctors, nurses, healthcare workers, you know what? They've studied, they've trained, they have built that up. Tomorrow, I'm not going to become one of them. Neither are you. Governor Cuomo is completely insensitive and missing. He's just out of touch. That he's like, well, just go and become an essential worker there. Are you out of your mind, Governor Cuomo? And I know I focus a lot on Governor Cuomo because he's my governor, but we hear similar things out of Governor Newsom in California. The same thing we hear out of Governor Whitmer in Michigan. A woman, especially Whitmer, who really gets me. You can't grow food for yourself because she doesn't want you to. And we're watching in various states that these stay-at-home orders are being thrown out the window by courts, which means we recognize there is a problem. The courts are recognizing they don't have the power to do this to you. They don't. I understand we want to do this to take care of each other, and we should. But the government doesn't have the power to say you are locked in solitary confinement, and by the way, the consequences of it are on you as well, and just too bad. That's a problem. I'm very excited right now. I'm very upset because none of this, everything that we're seeing in the media right now is trying to make this seem like this is a short-term 1, 2, 3 kind of situation, that it's going to be blown past and we're fine. By the time we get to June, no one's going to remember any of this. It's going to be done. Except we're going to be coming back in October and we're going through this again. And in October, what are you going to do? Spend another $3 trillion and close down the country again? Because COVID-19 is going to be back. Whether it's because we don't have a vaccine, which we don't, or because the virus hasn't gone away, because it hasn't. The same way that the flu hasn't gone away. Ebola, Zika virus, none of that stuff has gone away. Oh, we have someone calling in, so please hold on one second. Let's see. Can you, oops, there we go. Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you. This is Jason from Binghamton.
Hey, Jason. Jason from Binghamton is a repeat caller on the show sometimes. And folks, I love hearing from him. Jason, go ahead. Tell me what's by the way, and just for clarity, Jason, are you the county executive, Jason, or are you someone else?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Just in case someone wasn't sure. So go ahead.
Yeah, I just I wanted to make some comments on some of the stuff you were talking about today.
Sure.
I guess I guess to start with the voting situation. I think that online voting is a joke, and anybody who believes that is anywhere, going to be able to be secure, can simply just look at every single avenue, from online buying, from actually filing with the IRS, or just basic fraud that's done constantly, even with bank accounts and other things that are done online. But the one thing, that happens, the difference between all those frauds and then voting is the fact that once you find out you've been frauded, granted, it's going to take you a while to make the correction, but you'll be able to do it. But with a vote, yeah, there's no correction, there's no going back, and there's no oversight, to actually see what you cast after the fact you've already done it. And so it's impossible. And then people,
That's a good point.
would it really? We know what the actual objective of online voting or any of other of these processes are. Yeah, the other point I was going to say too about the voting is with these ballots is that just recently New York State went through and we started giving out all the legals licenses where they could also check that little box to vote.
Yeah.
Well, now they may be a little apprehensive to go and actual vote in person being illegal, but I mean, I'm pretty certain, they'll feel fully confident just going ahead and just mailing that slip in and then basically getting it back and then just casting their ballot as they go. So that definitely would streamline their confidence for the legals to actually get their opportunity to vote for the first time in New York State. Um, I'm not sure if you've thought of that at all as far as that goes.
No, you bring up a couple of very good points, and I think and this is why I say we must have term limits at the local, the state, the federal level, because, like you say, if we try and do this online thing, or even if we're doing mail-in ballots that we have seen consistently reported is very imperfect and also has its own massive problems. If we don't have this in there, we're having people who are elected in, okay, what happens after the election? After what? We find out 3 months, 6 months later that there were all these fraudulent, whether it's illegal aliens or manipulation by hacking or the ballots were missing. What do we do then? Do you take that person out? Do you change what? You got to rescind all the laws that they did because someone wasn't being accountable? It's a massive problem, and you're right. And I think part of the answer is let's put in term limits that at least minimizes some of these problems and gives us a chance to correct them by the next election, hopefully. So I think it's a good point you bring out. And it's like what Michael Chalison was saying. You guys have some good points there. What else were you thinking?
Hey, we got a little bit of a connection. I'm having a little hard time hearing you. I'm not sure if it's connected in the system properly.
It could be that, or it could be it's a new microphone as well. So, and I'm also
Okay.
so if I'm not pointing exactly in the right space, I'm still not used to it yet. So if I'm not talking directly into it, it might be coming off a little bit different. I apologize.
Okay, I got you. Um, yeah, there's some other things I was going to say too.
Yeah.
One thing is been a major concern for me this entire time is that we in Binghamton is Binghamton University, it's college town. It's pretty much every business at this point. Well, I would say a majority of downtown businesses are relying on Binghamton University coming back. And I don't know if you've noticed, but California, they just went full online with all of their classes. And to me, that kind of scared the crap out of me. Now, on the other note, though, is this Harvey Stinger did come out with a statement the other day saying that they were going to, be opening up Binghamton University and having, students coming back and stuff. But the uncertainty of this phase-in system, where I don't know what is it, 3 out of 100,000 people end up getting it within a 3-day turning time. If that implements in, I'm still concerned that will actually shut everything back down again. And so, we're kind of in a phase now, especially with students, I know that students are on the fence of whether they even want to even coming, because a lot of people, and even people who have rental properties and rent the students and stuff, is that these students, they're just kind of like, well, we're going to wait till the last second because we don't know whether or not we can actually do it. And, whether they're going to actually, commit at all has been a massive issue. There has also been articles about the mayor of Ithaca actually stating stating this was going to be a major problem up there, saying that if the students don't come back, or if the governor does something like that, you pretty much can kiss the city goodbye. One of the things that kind of concerns me, though, is the fact that I don't really believe we've heard much from Jason Gardner or from honestly, Rich David, or really anybody, saying exactly that, saying, well, what happens if Banks University ends up not coming back in the fall completely? I mean, I know they were once gauging up for the fall classes, but the fact that they're just not coming back, that's impossible, because I mean, obviously we're, even with all these payments and everything else coming out to these businesses and stuff, it's keeping a lot of people, I think, pacified at this point. Maybe right up until June and July, when things might, open back up again.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're looking at another, 5 months, or, until next January or February, until Bank University comes in full swing, it's going to be, I don't know. I mean, I think we really need politicians to pretty much say, look, school's got to come back, and we got to do whatever we can. And we cannot even sway, or, there's got to be confidence behind this, at least to support the community at this point.
Well, that's one of the things, and that's why I'm saying everything starts with the next step, and we have to have a plan. And as I've been saying, you've heard me say this for months now, and I think you'll admit, Jason, that I've been saying, what's our plan for October? We need to start making that plan now. Our elected officials need to say, we're working on October. They can't get past, what are we doing next week? Well, they're obviously not doing a very good job, because yes, you have to plan for next week. What about October when it comes back? And that's why it comes on us. And that's why I think the elections are so important, whether it's at the school at the school level, but also the primaries, and going forward. We need to put pressure on each and every one of these politicians and say, no, we can't just accept that you said so. And we need to put pressure on them to say, you don't have unlimited power. You are responsible. We know the courts are going to agree with us, because they are. So get your act together and make a plan. I'm not even asking them to have a perfect plan. I'm not even asking them to have a great plan. I'm just asking for an outline of a plan at this point. Because that must include, if we're going to keep our economies going, in our local area, we need schools. The university, Binghamton University, is a big part of that. Are we having the conversation? It seems like we're not. How can we do that? How can these elected officials not do this? So, I mean, that's why I want this show, is to highlight, and it's not only for you, it's not just for the audience, which I appreciate each and every one of you. I love you guys. But it's also for our politicians right now. Get on the job. Do your job. Think forward a little bit. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm not asking for something that I'm going to agree with 100%, but I want to see something. These guys are failing. Jason's, and it's not like I don't know all of them, to be fair. I know County Executive Jason Gardner. I've known him for years. I know Assemblywoman Donna Lapardo. I've known her for years. I know, State Senator Fred Axler. I know Mayor Rich David. I know Anthony Brindisi, our Congress representative at the moment. I know them all. I've known them for years. I'm not saying that these are good or bad people. Some are, some aren't. Fair enough. But I know that they're also not brilliant people. Not to say they're dumb, but we're not talking about Einsteins. No one is. Their IQs did not suddenly increase because they got elected to office. So I'm telling them the same thing I would want someone to tell me if I was elected. Hey, think ahead. Start making the plan today. Start getting input now. I was asking people back in February and in March to start talking to small businesses so that we could have a plan for the reopening. I'm talking now about October, because we need to get ahead of this. And if we don't get ahead of it, we're never going to have the right answer. And you will see this college close. You will see the businesses close. And we're going to be in a bigger hole than we already are in. Because we're already going to have taxes that are going to increase next year. We're already going to have services that are going to close next year. These are facts. No one wants to talk about it. No one wants to say it. It is a fact. So what are we going to do? So I don't want people to think I'm just attacking for no reason. There is a goal to it. I mean, does that come across, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I've been looking at this the whole time. I think one of the huge problems I think with a lot of narratives is that there's just so much focus, even with the politicians, on reopening, and just the overall narrative of exactly what you're trying to accomplish. Because every time they start mentioning deaths, and they're like, well, for example, they're like, well, if you don't wear a mask, then you're going to make more people die. And the bottom line is that the purpose of masks were never, the narrative on the mask is that, even regardless of whether the science is even there to support them or not, is really the fact is that it's just to make sure that we don't end up accelerating beyond medical capacity, and yet every time you hear somebody say, well, that person doesn't wear a mask, he doesn't care about you, and it's just like, I hate to tell you this, but the bottom line is that everybody's going to end up getting this thing, and it's just a matter of stopping everybody from getting it really, really fast. And my view at this point really is pretty much, I would actually prefer, let's put the the accelerator down, open up all the businesses. I mean, I believe all the businesses should be open at the same time, especially right now. And then we just pretty much just go do what we can, and once we get past this, I kind of believe it, be far better. But like I said, though, is I think that people still believe that we're doing these lockdowns and we're doing these masks and we're doing all these precautions to actually stop people from getting it, and that's just a lie. That's not the case. Everybody's going to get this. And one thing I got to say too about this vaccine that they keep talking about that really bothers me is that every time, and this is actually kind of a knock on the president. I'm usually supporting him a lot with things, but every time he says that, well, we're almost, they're doing this warp speed with this this vaccine, right?
Human trials.
The thing is, though, is just that it gives these politicians fuel to lock us down, because it gives them a reason, saying that, look, at right around the horizon, we're going to have this vaccine and everybody will be able to just get it and we'll go right on the way. And he just keeps pushing it down the road farther and farther until we're just further and further in hock, rather than being the fact that, people are saying that, well, it's not going to work at all. And then let's just jump, right into the workforce and just keep going, because we're going to have to deal with this. And so, right there, there's a narrative there too that really has to be, taken care of, because, like I said, having the faith in the vaccine, waiting, even what do they say now? It's like they did the 3-month study, they got a 6-month study, and they got the 10th-month study or something like that after that.
Yeah, that's the accelerated human trials, and it always takes at least 18 months, and that's lightning speed. So yeah, that's far too fast. So you're right. Yeah. You're right. We're trying to do this lightning speed, but in the meantime, we're locking down our people, our businesses, where we have no true answer, and we keep feeding people this false idea of fear and hope. There's hope around the corner, but be terrified until that moment. And while you're terrified, let us have unlimited power. Oops.
Yeah, absolutely.
Had the screen freeze for a second there. Sorry, folks. New camera, new technology. So I hope you heard all that. But I think you're bringing up some very good points, Jason. And I am hoping that not just us, but also the elected officials, who I know do watch this, they do follow what I say. Whether they agree with me or not doesn't matter. They are paying attention. I hope this is going to kickstart a couple of them at the county level, at the state level, federal level, to actually start paying attention to the details and say, hey, you know what, maybe we can put together a plan for the future. Let's start that skeleton, that framework now. Because they aren't, and that's failing, and it's showing in how many businesses are closing right now. So I definitely want to thank you for that. I know there's a couple of other issues I wanted to talk about today, but was there anything else that you wanted to get across, Jason?
Yeah, just you mentioned a little bit about China the other day and some of the concerns. I was watching some things go on that it was actually happening in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're having one heck of a kind of a trade war right now there because all they did, they said they wanted to look into the reason, the causes, that China, their failure. Basically, China, they were going to investigate China's failure with this, entire pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And the Chinese didn't like that. And so they're really doing what they can to shut them down. And right now, they're spiking massive tariffs on barley and these other goods. And I think, and the reason I bring this up and it's important is because if you look in contrast to where we stand with China, it's kind of in the same terms. And yet, when now you can see how they obviously have Australia, over the barrel where they can't really do. I mean, I think they're going to cave with the Chinese and pretty much do whatever they want when they want. And, the United States, if we didn't have Trump in the position he was, pushing as hard as he was to try to get us in better position with China, then they would be doing the exact same things with us. And then to a degree, they actually are, or they have been. And then obviously, if Biden gets in there, then they'll, completely have they'll have their way with the United States. But yeah, it was interesting because and not only that though is there was some other aggressive behaviors that China was doing, and you see down in Texas where a lot of these refineries and oil producers are completely going belly up, and what they're concerned is that the Chicoms are going to actually come in there and start buying up some of these companies. And on top of that though is you also have a lot of different properties as well too, which this is ironic because you have a big push with all these progressive groups telling everybody not to pay rent, which ironically, a majority of these people who are being told not to pay rent actually probably are getting paid more money for unemployment and all these perks than they had before. But what's happening is putting pressure on the entire property value market and causing properties to go belly up. And again, the Chicoms are taking this opportunity to come in and buy up properties, in certain ways in America. And so in this way, this is very dangerous, and I think this definitely needs to be addressed by the federal government to prevent the Chinese pretty much from buying every thing up from us when everything fails.
Well,
Um,
well,
and
we've been through this before, to be fair,
yeah,
because the Japanese did the same thing. Remember, I'm old enough to remember back in the 80s, 90s, where the Japanese were buying up every property in California. And partially, we kind of need that, to be fair. Just to be fair and to give context to this, we kind of need that because of our treasuries. We need them to buy our debt. And actually, it's kind of good for us to have the Chinese own the majority of our debt, the single largest owner of our debt, because if our economy crashes, that crashes them too. It's, to an extent, a safety net. It's not a good system at all. It's a bad system. It's built on a horrible premise. But given the horrible nature of what we have right this second, it exists. I acknowledge that's what they have right now, and that's the thought process behind it right now. They own so much of our debt, they can't let us fail. I don't think that's correct. I think there's a lot of inherent problems with that, but that's the reasoning. So I just want people to know that's the reason why they let them buy as much as they do, why they own so much of our debt, and why the government has allowed that to happen over several different presidents, not just President Trump, but going back to Bush, going back to Clinton. So that's the reasoning for that. I just wanted to flesh that out for people.
right.
So I get your concern. I absolutely do. Do we need to put caps on that? I think so. Do we need to look for diversification away from that? Absolutely. But that's kind of what we're talking about here. We need our politicians, we need us first to look ahead beyond next week's news, the 24-hour news cycle, more than just the next week, and say, hey, here are the ramifications of all this. I want you, Mr. or Mrs. elected official, to go out there and pass a bill or to put a plan in place that says, hey, this is how we're going to deal with X, Y, or Z. Here are some of our plans. And then work it out so that we have something in place. We can always fix it. If it isn't perfect, let's fix it. But at least if we have something, we're not just making this up as we go, kind of like Cuomo did with the nursing homes. He's making it up as he goes. And we also need to put pressure on our, and I'm somewhat segueing here, but we also need to put some pressure on our media companies. I mean, did everyone remember? And, well, actually, Jason, I'm going to jump onto another subject for a little bit. But let me, in case someone else wants to call in, because they can, I want to give them a chance as well. Okay?
Sure.
All right. Thank you. I always appreciate that you call in. I love that you're paying attention. And keep an eye on me. Make sure I'm always doing it right. But and I'm sure you'll send me texts and let me know what's going on as we keep going. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Jason.
Yep. I do. Bye.
Folks, that was one of our listeners, Jason from Binghamton. He's a great guy, and he always has a lot to say, and I always appreciate that he does speak and let us know. And you can, too. You can call in at 607-242-1582. The line is open. You can send us a text. You can make a phone call just like Jason did, or you can reach us at Voss Political Commentary on Facebook, which I think it's playing on Facebook right now. Thank you, Facebook, for, allowing me to do what I always do, which is actually make a video to the public, because they don't always. And also, you can reach us at MV Consult on Twitter. So what I was saying is there's a lot of things where it's not just our elected officials that we have to really rebuke and get them back on track. It's also that we have to look at our media and get them back on track. Because, I mean, how many people heard about Bill Maher throwing Tara Reid under a bus, throwing Me Too under a bus, just so he could back up Joe Biden? Now, this is the same Bill Maher that back in 2018, June of 2018, was saying he needs an economy. He wants to see the economy crushed. He wants to see people in recession. He wants businesses to close. He wants the American people to feel pain. He happens to be a multimillionaire, so he's not going to feel the pain with you, but he wants everyone else to feel it so that he could have an election won by a Democrat. That's what he said in 2018. You don't believe me? Look it up. Check out Google. It's all over the place. You can find the video. It's there. But let me ask you, did you hear about Bill Maher saying that he needs to throw women under the bus, that we should just go with Joe Biden? Because Tara Reid, well, it doesn't matter. It's not important. She should have shut up. He literally says that. In his video, he does in fact say that if he was in the same position, you can see there's a whole bunch of people who've been covering this, although the media hasn't been covering it. But Bill Maher goes and says, you know what? If you're a good Democrat and you've been sexually abused, you just don't say anything. You just let it go because you're not important. What happened to you isn't important. I know this is giving me a flashback going back to Cuomo, who's talking about domestic abuse. Domestic abuse is on the increase. Very bad. Not death. And here goes Bill Maher. Well, just don't talk about it. How can every woman who believes in the Me Too, every single woman, and I'm not talking about parties, every woman who believed Dr. Christine Ford, Blasey Ford, in the whole Kavanaugh debacle, just a year and a half ago. And if you believed her point blank and said, you must believe women, something like, Kirsten Gillibrand had said, and Senator Hirono out of Hawaii, that you must believe women and men should just shut up, then why in the world are those same women, those same women's groups, those same Democrats not suddenly saying, Tara Reid is right, we must back her, and that means that Joe Biden must go? That's a very important and interesting question. And I have to say, first of all, I don't believe In accusation, I do not believe in accusation equals guilt, which is what Me Too was very much saying. And that's why we had Al Franken, Senator Al Franken, gone. Did he ever get a day in his court? Did he get the presumption of innocence? No. Did Kavanaugh get the presumption of innocence? No. Investigated? Yes. Any proof? No. And he was still considered guilty. Okay. Here's the thing. We have monsters out there. Harvey Weinstein as a great example. Horrible monsters. And if women aren't talking up, these monsters don't get caught. They don't get punished for their crime, as they should. But that doesn't mean just because you accuse them that they instantly must be guilty. They need their day in court, too. And when they're proven to be guilty, throw the book at them, put them in jail for life. I'm not upset that Bill Cosby is in jail because he's guilty. Not because he got accused, but because he's guilty. And I say the same thing for Harvey Weinstein. You know, as far as we can see in the court cases so far, he's guilty. I have no problem with him going to jail for life. But I do believe in the presumption of innocence. But I'm not going to be so duplicitous as to say, well, you know, Joe Biden, he needs to get a pass. I didn't say that for Kavanaugh. I said, let's investigate and let's find out. But don't tell me that accusation equals guilt. Well, Democrats absolutely believe that. And Kirsten Gillibrand, Bill Maher, go down the list, all said you have to believe the women without a question, no matter if there is or is not proof. And you're an evil person if you don't. And now here they are turning around and saying, nope, the exact opposite's true. How do you reconcile that? I don't understand the mental gymnastics that has to go on in your head that you can say, America's not great, which is Governor Cuomo, to say that we need a recession and people need to be on bread lines, that's Bill Maher, say that you have to believe women without question, except when it's someone who's politically advantageous to your political ideology. How do you put that all together and say, yeah, I support that? I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense to me. But it makes a lot of sense that the media, who are very vested in making sure a certain outcome that they want happens, they want you to be in fear. We're hearing nothing about COVID. We're hearing only about COVID. And you're only hearing about COVID deaths, not the 98% survival rate. You're not hearing about the fact that it has a 0.05 mortality rate, that you are absolutely going to survive this, as I've been saying for months now. And that same kind of media that has a very specific goal is telling you, don't pay attention to Joe Biden. I mean, they even came out with an article, I believe it was in the New York Times, an opinion piece, saying that I believe Tara Reid, but I'm voting for Joe Biden anyway because, you know, in this case, her sexual assault is not as important as Joe Biden. Really? I don't understand it. But if we keep feeding into this, if you want to support Bill Maher, as Bill Maher flip-flops on Me Too and tries to set this moral equivalence that you're an evil person if you don't support Joe Biden, even if he is, and he makes it very clear, even if Joe Biden did it, he doesn't care. The sexual assault is not as important as the election. It tells you a lot about these Democrats. Governor Cuomo, domestic abuse is not as important as the election. Not as important as his ability to have power. That it's okay if people die in nursing homes as long as he has emergency power. These are the things we need to fix in America. These are the things I think we need to fix in America. Because if we fix those things, everything else can be easily fixed. Because that's where the real problem is. I don't have a problem. My problem isn't that we were looking out for people in the pandemic. It's that we have politicians who are looking out for themselves through the pandemic. That they're taking power and they're not planning ahead and they're not doing their obligation to take care of the people they represent. And as long as we don't speak up about that, they're going to do stupid things. Stupid things like, as I said before, talking about the voting. Well, Governor Cuomo said I can break the law, I can perjure myself, and that gives them the opportunity to pick and choose what vote that they're going to throw out. Because he doesn't have the power to do what he's saying he can do. Which leaves us in an imperfect situation. Like Christine mentioned, it's an imperfect situation. How do you vote even though you're going to perjure yourself? I understand. It's an absolute catch-22. It's an imperfect situation. And we're only in it because some politician who wants total power is making the system up as he goes. And that denies people the ability to have their voices heard and their vote heard. And I think that's one of the biggest problems we have. I think that's the root of the problems. You fix that. You stop people from having unlimited power, like Palpatine, and then you suddenly get back to a reality where we all are invested and involved in what's happening in our economy, and we start planning for the future. Not everyone will agree. And that's okay. Not everyone should agree. I'm not telling you that I have the perfect answer. I'm not telling you this is the perfect insight. This is somewhat of a rant. It's somewhat of anger coming out. So I'm not saying that I'm not being somewhat emotional, that I'm not upset. Of course I am. But that doesn't mean that it's wrong. And it doesn't mean that we shouldn't get together, have this conversation, make these votes, put these bills forth, and get the best thing forward, rather than having people who are just trying to promote their ideology and slam it on you and throw on you this immoral equivalence of, well, if you don't agree, you're evil. Screw you. I'm not evil. I'm a human being. Maybe I see something different. Well, you're not a doctor. Neither is Greta Thunberg. Neither is Nancy Pelosi. Neither is Jason Garnar or Governor Cuomo. But you know what? We all can read data. And we can all read that the CDC, the WHO, World Health Organization tell us that this is a 98% survivable virus with a 0.05% mortality rate. And that it's not going to go away. So we can make changes and we will be okay. I don't know how many times over the last couple of months I've been saying, we're going to be okay. And I'll say it again, we're going to be okay. We are. Because we already are. How do we improve? How do we get better? How do we make a better system? I'm trying to give ideas. I don't know if they're perfect. Maybe not. Maybe I'm too emotional. I don't know. And I am listening to you guys. I do listen to every single comment I get. I do check out every text I get. I do look and I try to respond to every comment, that whether it's on YouTube or on Facebook, I try to reach back out. And I'm going to reach back out to you guys again. Maybe I've missed a few things. Maybe. Maybe I haven't. Maybe I didn't go far enough. Are there things that I'm not catching on to? I want to hear from you. Do you agree with certain politicians that say that, hey, you should be able to, the politician who's saying, vote online? Do you believe with those politicians who say that, even though we know that 11-year-olds can hack into our voting systems? Do you think it's okay that we're going to have voting that is creating perjury and allows them to invalidate any vote as they choose? Do you think that our governor's unlimited power is a problem because he's picking and choosing people who are going to live and die? You know, people like in nursing homes, people who are under economic hardship, suicides, domestic abuse, that people who are suffering from these things, they're not as important, which I think is just absolutely insane. So, or that we have people who are saying, you know what, it's okay if a certain politician can commit sexual assault, it's okay because that's more important. I don't agree. I don't agree. And I think these are things that need to be said. And maybe I'm a little disjointed today in saying them, but I'd rather say them and get it all out there than to not say it and let this kind of stuff continue to go on because the major media is not willing to make these comments because some other of the media want to tell you that you're immoral because you don't agree with the message that's coming from these politicians, that's coming from these news organizations saying, do what we say or else. I do not agree with that. That's me. And I'm perfectly fine with standing by that, and I will live with the consequences of what I have said. Because I believe what I say, and I stand by what I have said, and I try to be as consistent as possible in what I believe, unless I have a reason to change my mind. Give me proof otherwise, because I don't think I'm wrong. And I think the evidence says I'm right. Okay, so I've said a lot here today. And, oh, by the way, Eric JC, thank you for telling me that you think the show is great. I appreciate it. I saw that before, and I just didn't comment because going through a lot of the thoughts here. But I appreciate each and every person who's seen this, every comment that you make, everyone you share it to. Please, always let us know. I should also mention, please don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. If you've liked this, if you like the content, and you think it's interesting, if you want to hear more, please let us know. If you think of anything that can improve the show, let me know. I will always try. And until the next time, I want to leave you guys. It made me laugh. It's very funny. Check it out. It's supposed to be on Twitter right now. I thought it was funny. Yes, I'm running for an elected office, but this isn't that. But I thought that was funny. So, guys, next time, I'll see you all soon. And I want everyone, you're going to be okay. You're going to be fine. And I'm looking forward to seeing you this summer. We're going to go out. We're going to have fun. And we're going to be okay. And I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, folks. And